Hey all, Tom Moran here from Tom's Big Spiders. This episode we're going to be taking a look at Birupes simoroxigorum, a beautiful blue-legged spider from Borneo that has kind of captivated the hobby because anytime you get a new blue spider, especially one as brilliant as this one, people are going to take notice and want to pick them up. Unfortunately, they're still pretty high priced right now. They're a little difficult to come by, so a lot of folks are afraid to take the chance on raising them. In this video, hopefully I'll be able to show what I did to get them from little slings to young adults now, what worked for me, and hopefully it'll help some folks out there feel confident enough to pick these guys up. So enough of me talking, let's get into the video and check out Birupes simoroxigorum. All right, so we're about to rehouse my Birupes simoroxigorum, or the Sarawak blue. These guys are from Borneo, very popular in the hobby right now because they are beautiful. I don't know if that's going to come out. Blue spiders, I've got some footage of these also, but a lot of the blue spiders, you have to have them under certain light to get them to pop. If any light hits these guys, that blue just explodes. It's amazing. But a lot of controversy around these because they were recently discovered and then immediately entered the hobby, and it sounds like that the ones that were taken out of the country to be identified for the paper were probably not legally taken, so it means that a lot of these guys that enter the hobby are not legal or have been poached, which is a true shame. And having spoken to people who live in this region, apparently there are still people down there taking them out of the wild, which is not okay. So one of those species that really does highlight the fact that as much as we like to think that as hobbyists, we are helping to keep tarantulas alive and in the wild, where in some points we're actually contributing to them disappearing from their natural habitat. But I digress. Moving on, what we are going to do here today is move this one into its adult enclosure. Now what we have here is a 12 by 8 by 8 primal enclosure, and my setup is we've got some leaf litter, we got some sphagnum moss in here, and this is a piece of cork bark that's a little bit big, but I'm figuring the spider's going to put on some size. But what I did is a lot of times when you have a piece of cork bark like this, if this opening is too large for the spider, they don't feel safe in there. So what will happen is they might not adopt this as their burrow. So what I did is put some moss right down there to kind of close it up a little bit so it feels a little tighter for the spider. We also have a water dish. The substrate is Biodue Terra Arania. Know that for substrate, there are a million different things you can use and you can mix them up. A couple other popular options are cocoa fiber and topsoil. And I also like to add vermiculite sometimes to help with water retention. Now, as far as moisture dependency, we'll get into a little more of this when we actually rehouse the spider. But this is one you want to give it some moisture, but you don't want to overdo it. So for example, I will keep the back moist. I will probably keep this part dry, and when I moisten it down, what I want is to keep those lower levels moist. I'm not so much concerned with keeping the whole thing sopping wet. That is not a good situation for any spider, nor is it good for these. All right, so what I hope to do here is put the spider in the new enclosure, the whole enclosure here, and then poke it, and hopefully it'll come out and go explore, and then we can get the old enclosure out. Let's see which part it's in. And there you go. Now, if you want to get some shots of that, gorgeous. Oh, and back in. Okay, well, that's what you get when you get greedy with the shots. If we could pick. I just want to. Get under that little edge. There you go. He does not want to leave this, so let's do the old. Up the cork bark. Now, if Billy wants to get a good shot of that there, this is why they are so highly sought after. They really are absolutely beautiful spiders. And I believe this one's a female. I believe it's a smaller species, but I have not found a molt once to sex. Actually, let me get this out of the way. There you go. Yep. There they go. and they are fast. This was one of the ones the last time we did a rehousing. It was a juvenile, and I was actually forced to rehouse it because I went to open up the vial and it came out of the vial, and I spent like a good half hour trying to corral the thing, trying to figure out how to put it in the vial because I didn't have the adult enclosure set up. So as far as how to keep these guys, luckily one of the things I thought about when I picked them up was the fact that I wanted to track how I kept them from hopefully slings through adulthood. This one here right now is right around 3 inches or so, so getting up there, so young adult size. So I picked them up from Fear Not Tarantulas at about 3/4 of an inch, and at that time I had it in a size 13 dram vial. I put in some sphagnum moss, some biodewed substrate, and I kept the bottom levels moist. It did a little bit of burrowing, but for the most part it was fairly visible, didn't burrow all the way down to the bottom. All right, so at 1.5 inches, we moved it into a 4x4 by 3 inch cube, and you can see the rehousing footage here. This was in October of 2021, and that gave it some room to grow, but they grow rather quickly, so I kind of thought I was going to have some decent time with it in those enclosures, but it didn't last very long, so now we're putting it into its adult enclosure here. Now, as far as notes on this species, very hardy overall. I think people panic when they see a spider that's that expensive that they're going to somehow lose it, but I found that they actually are quite hardy. They're fast growing. Eating wise, I've noticed they can be skittish eaters. So that means if you drop in larger prey items, they will often hide from it. I've only got one instance, and I will put it up here, where I was able to catch mine actually hunting, and it was only because I pre-killed the cricket or pre-wounded the prey item and dropped it right in front of the burrow. So know that when you're feeding yours, sometimes it may be necessary early on to pre-kill or wound the prey items before you drop them in, and I always kind of drop in smaller prey items than I usually would for a spider of this size. They are very fast and skittish as slings. However, as they put on size, I've noticed that the adults, or young adults, will sit right out in the open and give you a good view of them, which is great when you have a spider that's that pretty. Now, as far as moisture, as we mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you give them moisture, but you don't want to overdo it. This is one where you keep part of the substrate moist, part of it dry, and give them a water dish at all time. Now, temperatures in the winter months, it's low 70s or so. In the summertime months, it was only occasionally would get up to around 80, 82 degrees. But now that we're in the new tarantula room, it does hit mid 80s here quite a bit. Obviously, know that they can be kept room temperature, but the higher temperatures will lead to faster metabolisms and faster growth rates overall. So there we go, B. simoroxigorum. Hopefully people will continue to breed these guys because we really want to have them in the hobby, and I do fear at some point that if they aren't bred, they are going to be impossible to get, at least in the US. All right, so hopefully that helps some folks that maybe are on the fence with these guys. In my estimation, they are not that difficult to keep. The big thing is with them, don't overdo it with the moisture. I've talked to some people who really kind of moisten them down really well, and they didn't do particularly great on it. So the idea is to make sure they have the lower levels of substrate. They're nice and moist so they can go down there if they need it, but not to overdo it. As an adult or sub-adult now, I have rehoused both of mine. You can see the footage of the second one we took. I didn't record the whole video because I thought we had enough footage with this one, but both of them I will be keeping half of it. I'll wet down half of it, let it soak down, keep the bottom wet, but the rest of the substrate will be dry, and of course they will have a water dish. Obviously I'll do updates on these guys as time goes on, but pretty much that's it, from little teeny tiny sling to young adults. So anybody out there that's been looking for info, hopefully this is helpful. So that will do it for this one. As always, if you'd like enough to subscribe, very much appreciate. Click the little circle up there. If you want to check out some more videos, see what I'm about, you can find them in here. You can not subscribe, you can not check out videos. Just know I'll be here doing husbandry information if you need it. If you take the time to comment, I will take the time to respond. That'll do it for this one. As always, guys, stay safe. We'll catch you all next time.